Guys, this is Aaron, or Private Parts, Short Stuff, whatever you know me by, and today I'm going to start my Let's Play of Medieval 2. I have a mod called the Third Age Total War. I've played this a few times already. Never won a campaign, but I've played my fair share of this. It was kind of requested by other members of the Baddies group, particularly Chris, somewhat Jake. They're doing their own Let's Plays. Chris is doing a Let's Play of Deus Ex, and Jake is doing a Let's Play of Spec Ops The Line, so I figured I'd go ahead and get mine underway. Essentially what this is just, it's a strategy game, for those of you who aren't familiar with the Medieval series, or the Total War series I should say. And what you do is you pick a faction, you start off on an overland map, and you have armies, you have towns, you have castles, and you build upon these things, which I will show you more in depth as the Let's Play goes on. And you eventually conquer the territories. You know, conquer the world if you want to. It's kind of big, but that's okay. As you can see here, you have tons of different factions to pick from, ranging from Gondor, Rohan, all of them accurate to the books, to the movies that you've seen, to the story that you love. So yeah, it's quite an experience. The guys did a really good job. The development team on this mod did a really great job, and it should be its own standalone game, but instead they decided to release it as a mod, and it was very nice of them. So kudos to those guys. But back on this menu, we have all of these factions, and I took a specific request from Chris, so shout out to you, Chris. He said, be Gimli's people. And it's almost verbatim. So I'm going to take that to be the dwarves, Chris, since you clearly don't know what that faction is. And I'm going to set the difficulty on hard, and the battle difficulty on hard, and this is going to be difficult, to say the least. The campaign rules are going to be short, so it shows I have to hold 30 regions. If you look over here in the little description box below the map, and I have to eliminate the factions of the Orcs of the Misty Mountains. Yeah. And I will show you where that is once we start, but in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and shut up here and let you guys watch the cinematic. Alright, so pretty cool. There are plenty battles there, but if it comes to that, you'll get to see some very famous sites and locations from the movies and the books. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and get started here. As you see, you've got your Welcome to Middle-earth sign, yada yada yada. Hi, you're gonna get screwed over. This is gonna be difficult, but have fun. That's the page. And here you see the overland map. And as you can see here, I've got two territories, Erebor and the Iron Hills over here. And on the on the west coast of Middle-earth, I have the territories of Ered Luin, right there, and Nalgrim. Each territory has its own city or capital, not capital, or castle, and these represent these territories. So if they're taken, you lose the territory, you get the gist of it. And essentially what you want to do is you want to build up the territories. And the first thing you always want to do, as you can see down here, if you look below this little financial aid thing, I know my cursor is invisible, but there's a number. That number indicates the amount of wealth I have. So you don't start off with much at the beginning parts of the game, but the little you do start off with should be put immediately towards the construction of roads. Because roads, as you can see here, most of your places do not start with roads, and roads are a significant boost to your territories. They add roads spreading around to any cities that you establish trade rights with. So, like it says in the description here, it increases trade, goods, and improved roads and trade. And I think what that does later on, especially with the paved roads that you can purchase or construct, you have faster movement across the map with your armies, which is pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce you here to some of the places that you'll see. These are my starting locations, which means they'll probably be the strongest. I have a castle over here. This is obviously the most fortified location, and you have a range of things. You have villages to castles and towns and cities. Each one has its own defenses. This one here, being a castle, is more military oriented and is obviously going to have different options for buildings and recruitment, which means that it'll lack trade, but in the trade-off for that, I will get people like this, the Iron Guard, and I'll introduce those to you after this first turn. Let's go ahead and move this spy up. I know there is a village up here somewhere. Let's go ahead and skip through that. Yeah, I usually skip through their movements. Pay attention, you know, to the little area they reveal, but for the most part, you skip through that. But as I was saying, towns have simple walls around them. Castles can be upgraded to have multiple layers. This one's a beginning castle, so it's not going to be very defensible. Luckily, I don't plan on getting attacked there. But towns are more trade-oriented and therefore lack some defense. As you see here, Dale. This is the capital for Dale. It's right next to my capital of Erebor, which is good. And I start out as allies with the Dalesmen, which is great. Unfortunately, Dale's kind of weak, and their capital is not very strong at this moment. Erebor takes place inside the mountain here, so it's a much more defensible location. I guess befitting, since we're dwarves, right? But essentially, that's a quick overview of towns, castles, and cities, and you'll become accustomed to those as the Let's Play progresses. But for right now, I'm going to go ahead and introduce you to the people that are currently holding these towns and castles. And you have Glowin over here with his attributes. He's holding Arid Lewin, and for Nalgrim you have Gimli. Chris, here you are. That's especially for you. And just sit here for a couple seconds, let you take that in. There, that's enough. And for Erebor, my capital, you have King Dane. He is my faction leader. He has slightly different statistics or slightly different characteristics than some of the other generals. That's only because he serves as a faction leader, though. And over here in my military-esque place, you have Lord Thorin from The Hobbit. He is my faction heir. So what that signifies is, if I lose my king, faction heir will take over and turn into the new king. And I think we are good to go for the first turn. Oh, I take that back. I apologize. Thorn's Hall. We want to go ahead and construct mines. Get that underway. Anything that'll boost our income, because what you see here is a financial overview, and at the bottom it says projected treasury totals. That's essentially showing you what you will have in your treasury after the next turn. And you see this is the number in red with the minus sign is the basically the expenditure, the negative profits, which is the amount of money I've spent in difference to the amount of money total I would have received next turn. Kind of complicated, I know, but you'll get to understand it. And you see the two bars here, income and expenditure. Income generally shows you what you're getting. Expenditure is showing your expenses. As you can see, construction is taking up a lot of it initially, as well as corruption. Corruption takes up quite a bit later on too. You have to learn how to root that out by building town watches and stuff like that. Anything that helps with administration kind of lowers corruption. But income, you see you've got farming, mining, trade, King's Purse, that's a good one. And for the dwarves, we're basically going to be focusing on mining and trade. Farming, not so much. We aren't agrarian. We are commodity and resource based. So, oh, I forgot to mention I've got Balin over here. He's one of my generals. And I think that does it for the first turn. I'll introduce you to the units next, and we'll see how that goes. It looks like Dale is moving out already. So one of the first things you want to do is capture. You want to capture neutral territories, which some are located somewhere in random locations across the map, various locations. So it's kind of difficult to know exactly where they are unless you've played the faction before, and I have not played this faction before, so I can tell you right now this is as much an experience for you viewers as it is for me. Oh, so here you have the Palantiry. This is housed in Minas Tirith, Barad-dûr, Isengard, and Illustrian. And what you can do if you own this is you have a certain command that you can activate, and that essentially it reveals the area, a random string of areas around your territory, which is pretty useful, especially if you're Gondor or Mordor. Okay, and here you have the end of turn report. It shows up at the end of every turn, and it shows you what you've gained, what you lost, and how you stand against other factions. As you can see right now, I'm currently ranked pretty low on most of these. I'm doing alright in military and population. I'm the dwarf, so I'm tough. So I'm only hoping that that'll increase as the game progresses. And as you can see here, I've stumbled across a rebel village. Villages are always the easiest to take because they have no defenses whatsoever. They're completely open, and they're usually guarded by a very meager amount of troops. So you have that there, and we'll eventually get an army going up from Erebor into that location. In fact, shoot. Might as well do it now. Let's go ahead and... Oh, wait, we want to get a diplomat. Diplomats serve a great purpose in... you send them out, and you try and contact other factions, and you gain rewards through that, as well as the trade rights and the territories... Not territories, essentially, but map information, army locations, you know. It's a great way of increasing your power, or your relationship as well. And as you can see, I've got a candidate for adoption. This comes up occasionally, and each candidate will usually have a benefactor. Like it says up here, my benefactor for this one is King Dane, which means if I accept this candidate to be adopted into the royal family, he'll spawn in the dwarven capital of Erebor, because that's where his benefactor resides. So I'm going to go ahead and do that initially, because that's always a good plan from the start, is you want to accept the initial commanders that would like to join your family. It's always a good thing. Late game, you do not want to do that, essentially, because it will end up costing you more than what you can normally pay, and you may result in having an army of generals instead of an army of soldiers, and it's kind of bad. I would not recommend adopting too many people. I would say adopt as many as it takes to hold each territory, just one, and then plus an extra or a couple extras to lead your army, or armies, you know, depending on how strong you are. But let's go ahead and get into the units real quick before we make any, you know, actions or take any territories. And I guess I'll go ahead and use Erebor as a perfect example right now. Whoops. You want to hit the Army tab, and this gives you a list of your unit cards, which is very useful because you can right-click them, and it gives you a very detailed description. They did a great job on this. It gives you a detailed description of what they are, what they're good at, and it gives you their attack, if you look on the right, attack, total defense, their hit points, their upkeep, recruitment cost, everything about them, and how many soldiers are in this platoon or this battalion, what have you. As you can see, these guys are pretty weak. Total defense is 9, with their attack being 5. So they're kind of like the militia of the dwarves. I wouldn't throw them up against a bunch of goblins, but they're great for attacking rocks. I'll give them that, since they're miners. And then you eventually have like the backbone of your army, being like the dwarven warriors. You have a total defense here of 16 with an attack of 7. Now these guys are good. These guys are good. Dwarven warriors are what you normally want to comprise your army of, because they're not too expensive, and they're fairly decent. And if you'll notice on this guy here, he's got a chevron, a brown colored chevron. What that signifies is that he's got an experience. If you look up right below where it gives you the number of soldiers, it says experience, he's got 1. And you compare him to dwarven warriors without experience, and you'll see, I'll give it a second real quick, you'll see the attack of this one is 6 experience, he has 0. So these guys have 6 attacks, 0 experience, while these guys have 1 experience, and it boosts their attack up 1. That doesn't happen for each experience point, but it always happens for the initial one. Sometimes it boosts both total defense as well as attack, other times just attack. In this case, just attack. And it's very useful, so it gives you an incentive to keep your battalions alive, not just to, you know, throw them out to the enemy and hope that they survive. But that's essentially what it is. You have various types of units, like you see here. I've got my dwarven warriors, more dwarven miners, dwarven axe throwers. These are missile units, but they serve the same purpose as javelineers. So if the enemy isn't 5 feet in front of them, they're not throwing anything. Great, you know, but they're really good. If the enemy is 5 feet in front of them, well, then you can expect the enemy's losses to be heavy. So that's 1+. And then you have dwarven axemen. 14 total defense, 8 attack. These guys are good too. So it basically shows you that each infantry or each unit has serves its own purpose. You see the melee units, the axe throwers, are brilliant for taking out close range assaulters and heavily armored units. It says abilities at a glance. If you look over to the left, it says effective against armor, good morale, good stamina. And the dwarven axemen are good against fighting cavalry, obviously, because they've got long axes. And they've got excellent morale, and what that essentially means is that they won't break easily. You'll find later on in my campaigns that units will rout. You don't like that, because units routing means no units for you. And that essentially dictates that you might lose the battle once your units start routing. And you'll have elite units, such as these guys, Dragon Slayers of Arid Mithrin. Let's check these boys out. As you can see, they've got 20 total defense and 9 attack with 2 experience. That means they're much less likely to rout, and they will probably actually carry my battles for me if I use them later on, which I hope to. I want to see these boys in action. This is good. And then you have even more elite units, such as the Iron Guard here, which is 23 total defense and 12 attack. These guys are the cream of the crop when it comes to the dwarves. I don't want to use them right now because I don't have the facilities or the infrastructure to reinforce their battalion. So if I take losses on these guys, it's almost permanent until I get, you know, better upgrades for my castle to pump out Iron Guards. Because it's only when you can pump out, or when you can actually construct or recruit the type of unit that you can reinforce them. Which means that you don't want to waste your elite units right away. You don't want to waste them at all, essentially, but especially not right away. For right now, let's go ahead and continue forth. Press onward, as they say. Alright, and as you can see, since I've just finished recruiting my diplomat, the council saw that I just finished it, and so they gave me my first mission. And it gives you a location if you click the little magnification, or the little scope, and they want me to send my diplomat there. And oftentimes, well, I shouldn't say often, every time that the council gives you a mission, they will, you see there's a target, and they'll have a reward for you. For instance, this one will be military units, which isn't my favorite reward, as it significantly reduces your income sometimes, because they might spawn the military units in a location that does not have any free slots left available for home guard units, which get free upkeep. And that's one thing I'll explain right now real quick. You see these guys with the blue tint behind their unit icon? That means they're part of this designated home guard, which essentially means their upkeep is free as long as they're garrisoned. So what happens is each place has only a limited amount of garrisonable units for the home guard, and once you run out of that, any other units, such as here in Thorn's Hall, you'll see this one only has 1 slot for garrisoned home guards. The rest of these guys I'm paying full upkeep on. So that's what I'm afraid of, is that they spawn these units in locations that run out of slots, and essentially what happens is you end up paying full price for those guys constantly, and it really is a detriment to your profit later on.
Something to investigate.
But for right now, we're just going to ignore that, because it shouldn't be too much of a detriment to us early game. No, Dwarven Watchtower. And let's go ahead and check on everything. As you can see, 2 more turns until our dirt roads are completed, and you'll see that in a visual aspect spreading out from Erebor. So if you take a look at it right now, 2 turns from now, you'll see a bunch of roads sprouting from it, which will be pretty neat. Alright, as you can see here, at the end of this turn, we have a bride presented to one of our generals, and you usually want to accept this early on, as it brings children into your royal family, and it's wonderful because they serve the purpose of generals later on. And as you can see, military celebrations, end of turn report. Looks like we're in the green. This is good. Green usually means that there was a shift, and you either stayed where you were or you actually advanced, and that's good. We want that to happen. And you saw earlier, as I brought it up, as a military report. Essentially, if you're not Gondor and you're not Mordor, this is going to say your army sucks, blah blah blah, using big words such as rudimentary. Very nice, thank you so much. It's basically like you're poor, you don't have the money to support a standing army, and we are going to tell you this. Very nice of them, very nice. But we don't have to worry about that right now, because we're only facing the goblins, or the orcs of the Misty Mountains and the orcs of Gundabad. So we'll worry about that when the time comes. But let's go ahead and get this guy over here. There we go. Trade rights. Let's hope this works. It's quite reasonable. Good. So you see, I just completed that mission. They gave me 2 units of Dwarven miners at my capital. Good thing my capital has sufficient capacity to hold these guys there for free upkeep. So that's good. And next, I'm going to want to send this guy across the Misty Mountains towards the High Elves. High Elves are always next on the list. Okay, but, oh, I forgot to mention something over here in the faction summary window. You can click on that and see your faction statistics, cities, castles owned, generals, regions controlled, the like, you know, what year it is. I've got a whopping 397 turns remaining. I thought this was a short one. Gosh. And if you click on the diplomacy tab, you can see your enemies, your allies, your vassals, although in this mod there are no vassals. So that's nothing you need to worry about. And you see your victory conditions. I have to hold 30 regions, and I have to eliminate the orcs of the Misty Mountains, which is very difficult, because what this game doesn't tell you whenever you have to eliminate the orcs of the Misty Mountains is you have to eliminate and conquer this entire northern hemisphere, which belongs to the orcs of Gundabad, which are stronger than the Misty Mountains because they're orcs, not goblins. And only then can you finally really penetrate into this mountain range here, which is scary because you've got Moria, which is somewhere down here, I believe. Actually, it might be down here. I can't remember. I think it's up here, though. Right, yeah, right in that little depression there. And what this thing is, this range is littered with tons of goblin mountain forts and cities and villages. It's not fun. It's a really big deterrence to players from having to, you know, try and march armies in there for the risk of losing them. It's not fun. But we'll deal with that later. Alright, as you can see, I've got another candidate for adoption here. Benefactor is King Dane, once again, Keeley, for any of those of you who've read The Hobbit. He's 18, he's a young general, he's good, but I don't need him at this moment. It's kind of bad to turn down candidates, but at the same time, I'd like I like my money. I like my income. And it seems that we're doing alright here. Free Peoples have taken the financial aspect, which is good. And the dirt roads were created. So if you look now, I've got kind of these roads extending from Erebor. You can see they go up this way, out that way. It's pretty nifty. And it helps a lot. It really does. There's a road coming out of Kibble Doom now. And that means we can start building other things, especially since we're going to receive some more profits in the future. You have pig farms. I forgot to mention you have like population growth, public order, income, culture. All of this can be seen and accessed easily from the from the city card, or from clicking on your city. You can inquire information about it. And as you can see here, my public order looks good. Most of this is just the distance to the capital. So the farther away it is, the more unrest it might have. And unfortunately, as you can see, there's a ton of corruption here. But I have nothing to combat that with. Thank you, Glowin. Corruption is usually attributed to whoever's in charge. Increasing their loyalty and obedience attributes will generally give you a better hand. And corruption will be depressed, or not depressed, but suppressed. And as you can see, you've got the population growth here, which is increased by pig farms. But from what I've seen and from my own experience, is you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that too early in the game, because it's basically like a bum rush for population. And whenever it plateaus or stagnates over time, you end up losing the bonuses and the happiness, and you can actually throw yourself into somewhat of a financial depression. So we don't want to do that too early. But we'll go ahead and continue in. Okay, as you can see, we've made some strides, and I'll just let him move on his own. End of turn report shows we are advancing. Production, we went from like 10 to 5 in one turn. That is awesome. You always want to do that. And let's see, is there anything else we need to be doing? Oh, looks like there's a high elven diplomat coming to offer us a warm blow. Let's see, not much we can do at the moment. We could probably start building up this castle, but we need population. As you can see, read there, population, there are requirements for upgrading your settlements, and the one that here is required is 7,500 population, and I only have 1,400. Let's go ahead and build a pig farm. And oh wow, I forgot about that. Pig farms increase your harvest and your administration, which increases your overall income. Whoa. Oh, I totally forgot they were part of your income. That's it. Pig farms for everybody. Pig farms for everyone. Alright. Well, let's get that underway. And hopefully, in the next turn here, we can get another Dwarven Warrior Battalion and send those out with the with Balin and Nain, and we'll go capture that village. But we'll save that for part 2 of the Let's Play when we get into the combat aspect. For right now, I'm going to go ahead and sign off, and I hope you guys enjoy and finish watching the Let's Play.